my car isn't anywhere as good as that.
All right, everybody. Hi, and welcome, you guys. Hi, good, hi, hello, hi. You too, yes, hi, oh my gosh. Hi, this is Digital Painting 101, you guys. Welcome to that. My name is Amelie Belcher. Welcome to me. Hi. How many people have done a panel with me before? Raise your hands. Okay, good, yes, good. Yay, everybody else. How many people in this room maybe have not done a lot of digital painting before? Raise your hands. Okay. How many people in this room have done actual physical painting in real world media? Oh, that's what I want to see. Yes. Okay, excellent. And everyone who didn't raise your hands, I'm going to assume the last time you painted was turkey hands in middle school, right? Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah. Well, what I'm going to show you today, oh, by the way, I am a professional artist, I'm a professional illustrator, I'm a professional comic maker, I'm a professional podcaster, I'm professionally poor. Yay! But what I'm going to show you today is just some basic skill sets for digital painting within Photoshop. Now, I am using Photoshop, all right, but what I'm going to show you today, I'm going to try to keep in the broadest, most loosest terms so that it can apply to pretty much any program you choose to put your hand towards, okay? Now, before we get going, once again, people are all like, do I need Photoshop? Is it industry standard? Yes, Photoshop is industry standard, just so artists can work on other artists' files across the board, no big deal, that it all works. But what I'm going to work with today is just a tool. That's the main thing I want you to keep in mind. What I'm going to show you is just a set of tools and just a set of skills and just a set of suggestions. So at the end of the day, you should be able to take everything I'm showing you now and use it in Paint Tool Side, use it in Clip Studio Paint, use it in GIMP, whatever it is you're using to paint with, you should be able to transfer everything I'm saying over to those programs. So I'm going to try to use just the most basic generalized terms available, but I'm going to throw a lot of information at you today. So this is a 2-hour panel, you guys, so strap in, get ready for that, yeah. So, okay. So first things first, let me get on my little teacher soapbox for just a hot second. The best thing you can do for yourself in terms of learning to paint digitally is taking some time to paint with real physical media. Now I know that sounds silly because this, you can go Control-Z, JK, just kidding, ha. But with real physical media, you get a real sense of how you should mix some color without a different color coming in. Some colors play well together and others don't. It gives you a real sense of what sort of quality of work you're looking for, loose or soft or things like that. And also just gets your hand used to getting in there, making a mess, getting nuts with it, right? The other thing with physical media is you don't have Control-Z. You don't have the ability to go, just kidding, ha, and try it again. So you learn to commit. I like to say there's no such thing as a mistake, only happy accidents. I like to say that. Bob Ross didn't say that. I said that just now. Me, yay, no. But for real, the Bob Rossian method of happy accidents, when you think, oh, that's a boo-boo. No, it's not. Future you's got this. Future you's going to come back and turn that into something amazing. So you learn to let mistakes lie and work with them later. With digital media, the temptation is to go, ooh, let me just keep playing with it, let me just keep playing with it, let me just keep playing with it, let me just keep, because it doesn't dry. You don't have a limited frame of time to play with it. It's there forever. You can just keep making a new layer and making a new layer and making a new layer. And you could spend weeks on just a background image. So with physical media, you have a very short window of time, and later today I'm going to be doing a live painting demonstration out in front of the art auction, so if anybody wants to see me make a mess, yeah, come out and see that. But with digital, it's let me just smooth it, and let me just smooth it, and let me just smooth it. And you'll notice a lot of times with digital media and digital backgrounds, everything's so smooth, and everything's just very soft, no hard edges at all. And that's that fear of letting things that you might not think are the greatest live. But it's okay to let little sharp pops. That's how you build a world, with contrast and shadow and tone. And with digital, it's so easy to go, no, not in my world. It's just big, fluffy, pink clouds everywhere. So let's go ahead and jump into it, you guys. So first things first, I've got myself just a basic canvas up here right now. I like to work at a very high DPI just because that's who I am. Anywhere from 350 to 400 is the standard for comic books in the US. That's the coloring standard, I should say. 400 DPI, that's good enough for comic books. You can blow it up your posters, looks great. 600 DPI, that's what I work at, but that's because I'm a crazy person. person, okay? That makes her a very big file. 400 to 350 works just fine for most illustrative stuff. So unless it's like a piece where you're like, I'm going to get a giant poster made up, a billboard, then you don't really need to work any higher than 400. So I've got this bad boy set up right now. So what I'm going to do, let's just start with how to use our brushes and how to use color within this world. I'm basically going to just Bob Ross for you guys right now. Let's just build a world, see where it takes us, and I'm going to show you and just, really voice everything. Ooh. Oh, you guys see that a little better now? Yeah, a little bit? Yeah. Ooh, okay, cool. Thank you. Yay. Ooh.
We'll keep doing it. Happy accents.
Beautiful. Love it. Okay. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with, I like to go in and just start painting, just because that I am a painter in real life. So, I teach painting as well. So, I'm the #1 requested artist at Painting with a Twist in the country. Yay! So, brag. So, we're good. Yay! Perfect. Love it, you guys. Perfect. Okay. You guys just got real intimate in here. Yeah. So when I paint, I just go in and I make a mess and I see what happens and I see where the shapes start to form and I go from there. But for the sake of showing you guys some really illustrative steps, let's get in here with a pencil tool real quick. Now you don't want to start on your background layer, because if you start on your background, it's there. And then you have to be like, ugh, and create a layer on top of it and hide it. Blah, blah, blah. So what you want to do is create a new layer right off the bat. Now the first thing you're going to see, if you look over here, is that this is like white blank, but this has got that little checkerboard. And that just means that that's transparent. It's like having one of those acetone sheets on an overhead at your school. Does anybody still use overhead projectors? No? Oh God. Hi, I'm an old. So, but just a clear sheet. And I'm sure we all know about layers at this point, so I really don't want to belabor that point too much. But for those of you who don't know, a layer is just a clear sheet, and you can put another one a clear sheet, and another one a clear sheet, and just build and build and build and build and build. You can have as many layers as you want, but keep in mind, the more layers you have, the bigger a file you're creating. You can always collapse those layers down into a single layer, but then after you do that, it's really kind of hard to pull them back apart, because they don't do that after that. So keep that in mind. So I'm going to start with just a layer, and let's get nuts. Let's see what happens. I'm going to get in here. I'm going to have a pencil. It's got black on there. Sweet. Why not? So let's say I'm going to have, I don't know, some big. Oh, hold on. Okay, there we go. Some big, expressive, fluffy clouds, maybe up here. Some big old, maybe a storm head rolling through the back there. Maybe there's a nice little mountain kind of hill. Maybe there's some little hills back there. Maybe this is like a little Breath of the Wild sort of looking thing. Lots of color, lots of big shapes, lots of hills. So I've got my far distant background. Whenever you paint, whether it be digitally or in real life, you want to start with the farthest thing from you and work towards the closest thing, okay? So I'm starting with my far distant background. I'm going to be like, okay, so what's my middle ground over here? I've got some mountains, I got some shapes, things are happening over there. Maybe there's a little river, something cutting through. Maybe there's a valley down here. And then maybe now we're moving up to our foreground, the thing that's closest to us down at the bottom of the page. Maybe there's a little cliff kind of jutting out over here. It's got some rocks, maybe it's got a little crack or something right through here. Maybe over here we got the other side. Maybe that valley comes right up through here like that. And we're seeing the edges of it creep on down. Maybe there's a little river right through here. And all I'm doing is just kind of plotting out this world. Where do I want everything? What's going to happen within this world? Okay, that looks pretty good. I bet over here there's probably a little stand of trees. I'm really just thinking about Breath of the Wild right now, where those Korok seeds are. So let's pull a little something over here, and maybe we've got a little figure or something standing right here, a little hat flowing in the breeze, shield on his back. Just have him standing right here for now. He's got a bow in his hand. All right. Maybe there's another big cloud. This space is just little. Now the other thing to keep in mind, make negative space work for you. That's the thing. So I have this big area with nothing in it. I'm like, something needs to live there. But this may not be as big a standout cloud as his big brother hanging out here in the front kind of thing. So maybe there's, I know. I think there's a castle way over here in the background. That's what I think we're looking at. Okay, maybe there's that big tree back there, maybe a couple more mountains hanging out in the back there. But notice what I'm doing. Those of you who were there for my Draw Like You Mean It panel yesterday can kind of see what it is I'm doing right now. I'm getting in there and I'm just making a mess just to figure out where things are spatially within the piece, right? So it's not about getting in there and being like, I have to draw every little leaf on this tree. It's got to be the most leafy tree in the history of leafy trees. And be like, here's the leaf, and there's a leaf, and there's a leaf, and there's a leaf. Because that's dead. There's no energy behind there. But if I come in here and I'm like, oh, there we go. And if I come in here, I'm like, yeah, no, that's where the tree lives. This is where the tree lives. It's going to be darker down there. That's where that tree lives. The tree lives over there. There's some stems coming up like that. There's a tree. There's another tree over there. There's a lot more life in that. Now, it's not a completely rendered drawing, but I'm getting it in there, I'm getting it done. I'm not giving them names, backstories. I'm not setting up social security numbers or college funds for any of this right now. I don't care what house in Harry Potter that tree wanted to be. I just need to know where he's living and how much space he's taken up. So at this point, I'm feeling pretty darn good about this sketch, all right? So I'm gonna go, all right, I think I'm ready to commit. So what I'm going to do is give myself a new layer, but I'm going to make sure that this new second layer, I'm going to name the layer that I just did. I'm going to come over here, double tap that, and I'm going to come over here and name it Sketch, just so I know where it is. I am the queen of forgetting to name my layers. And then I'll go back through and I'll have like 17 figures in a piece, and I'll be all like, and turn layer off, 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 there's his eye, kind of thing, you know? So if you name your layers, it really does save time. So naming your layers is fun. This one I'm going to double tap, and we're going to name this layer like sky and background. So sky and background. Beautiful. Okay. And now what I want to do, here's the thing. If I'm going to start painting on the sky and background layer, let me show you just something real quick. I'm going to grab, just this pencil tool, doesn't need anything fancy right now. If I come in here and I do sketching on top of that line layer, it's going to start to cover up that line layer and I can't see it anymore, right? But if I take that layer and I drop it beneath, well, now I can still see my sketch. Yay! Good job, yay. Everybody here's like, I know about layers. Move on to the good stuff, tell me your secrets. But I just want to really let you guys, know about how to use your layers. So I'm sure we've all seen that meme right now. It's like, no, you have to stop. Why? You're drawing on the wrong layer. Yeah, that's me. So I'm going to make sure my sketch layer is above the layer I'm about to color on, but I'm also going to take the opacity on that sketch layer down so that it's not the boss of me anymore. It's just a really, really, really faint sketch. So let me see. You guys are seeing a different color than I'm seeing, which often happens when the computer gets projected, the color's a little off. So I'm going to try to make sure my colors match as close as that as possible. So, all right. So I still can see my sketch. It's real loose, but that sketch is not the boss of me. At some point in this, I'm going to be like, thank you for your service. You may leave now. So I'm going to go back down, and I'm going to start getting in there, and I'm going to start doing my color layer. Now, here's a little trick that I like to do. I was taught this by a friend of mine. I like to add another layer underneath, just an unnamed layer, and I like to come in, and I'll pick like basic kind of sky color. Let's do something like that. Oh, by the way, you see this little like exclamation point triangle that pops up over here? What that is I'm working in CMYK mode, and that's the colors that a printer uses. So when I'm working with my images, I want to make sure that when I go to have it printed, it prints as close to the color that I did in the computer as possible. If you do RGB, red, green, blue, the printer doesn't work with those colors, so the poor little computer is desperately trying to make the colors look as close as possible, and you're going to get slight color variations. But if you work in CMKY mode, you're working with the same colors that are already within a printer, so you'll get as close to what you see in your computer as possible. Now on that note, real quick, keep in mind that you're going to lose about 20% of your work no matter what. That's just the name of the beast, Printing has come a long way in the last decade, let me tell you, but I'll still look at a piece and go, well, that was 20 minutes of my life I'll never get back. But that's just what happens. So keep in mind, keep it loose, keep it rough, because you never know quite what you are going to see and not see. What you got?
Would be a reason to work in RGB instead of CMYK?
That's a great question. I don't know. I have never. Oh, do you know? Do you know?
Absolutely.
RGB, if you're working for something that's on a screen,
Oh, there it
you
is.
use red, green, and blue light, combine that to create your color.
I knew once upon a time, but I haven't slept in a couple weeks, so I was all like, I'm not even gonna lie, I don't even, thank you for that. But yeah, you're right, it's computer based, so yeah. An artist friend of mine was actually written up in a local arts newspaper, and she sent in an RGB file instead of the CMKY file, and she's like, why does it look terrible? I was all like, oh, dude, you sent the wrong file. So there you go. Good job. Yeah. Thank you for that. Okay, so that's what we call crowdsourcing information. Yes. Wisdom of the crowds. Yes. If you have a question, ask people. That's the main thing. So, especially when you're learning. But anyway, this little triangle that pops up right here, what that is it's telling me, hey, that color that you've picked out right now, it's going to be really hard to get printed. But if you click it, boop, it takes you to the color that's closest to it. That'll be like, you got this, bro. Yay! So if you just want to be on the ultra safe side, you can click that little triangle and it goes, boop, yeah, you're good. Me, I don't really worry about it too much because I'm just going to be all over the map, and I do a lot of color correction at the end anyway. But anyway, let's just roll up in here. So I'm going to choose like a basic kind of bluish sky color. Yeah, let's go a little bit bright. Like that, okay. Then I'm going to pick on this secondary color down here. I'm going to click that. And let's grab something a little more on the pink, like, oh, maybe like a little on the orangey spectrum. Yeah, that's fun. Let's click that. And then I'm going to go down over here to my bucket fill tool. I'm going to get the gradient tool. Now what I'm going to do on this layer that I haven't named, I'm going to come down here and just fill in a gradient. Boom, just like that. Now what I've done automatically is gotten rid of all the white on the canvas. Whenever you paint, be it digitally or otherwise, you want to get rid of the white as quickly as possible because that white is reflecting back into your eyes. It's affecting the cones in your eyes. It physically affects how your eyes read color. So getting rid of that helps you to really make some really dynamic color choices. But if your eyes are just getting white light shot directly into them, like remember when you were a little kid and like you did that thing where you stared at like an image that was like a negative color for like 30 seconds and then you looked at a piece of white paper and you saw the image on the white paper in the correct colors? That's what's happening right here in your eyes. So also on that point, take breaks often because once again, even after the white's gone, this color is still being shot into the cones in your eyes, right? So it's still affecting your eyes. Give your eyes breaks often. That's a real thing, okay? So give your eyes breaks. Come back with what is called fresh eyes as often as you can. So I've gotten rid of all the white and I've got some sort of a gradient going. I've already got something I can play with. Now I'm going to go back up to my sky and background. And let me zoom in a little bit here. Let's kind of pull up that sky and background. Let's start playing with this. So now I'm going to come over and I'm going to get a brush tool. I was working with the pencil tool before, which is great for sketching and filling in like really hard edge things. But now I want to start playing with my brushes. And this is where things get fun because all the control comes from your brushes and how you use them. So what I'm going to do, I've got all my brushes over here. You can like make your own brushes. You can preload those sons of guns. There are people who sell brush packs. There are people who give away brush packs. Use those. If you're going to use them commercially, make sure that you're allowed to use them commercially because that ain't cool when you just rip off somebody's brushes. But I'm going to come over here. I'm just going to choose this basic brush. Now down here, this right here is your like control center. If you're flying the Enterprise, this is where you're in charge, right? So hardness, let me just make my brush a little big here so you can see what I'm doing. Hardness, let me get a nice dark color here. Hardness means like the hardness of the edge. So right now the hardness is at 0%. And do you see how soft and gentle and lovely? It's like an airbrush. Oh, it's so soft and nice, lovely. But if I take that hardness all the way up, yeah, look at that. I'm gonna turn this down real quick just for nice, real hard edge on that. So if I make a dot, boom, nice hard edge on that. So the more you play with the hardness, the more you can get hard edge shapes or really soft edge shapes. Spacing down here is your other secret weapon. So spacing, what a line is, the definition of a line are points connected. The points are just dots, okay? So, with any line you're drawing within Photoshop or your drawing programs, it's literally just how close are the dots to make a certain line. So I've got spacing all the way down here, so if I come in here and go whoosh, it reads as a line, a solid line. But if I come in here and actually let me show you what's happening. Yeah. So if I come in here and I like pull that spacing away out, you see how the dots start to separate from each other and like, oh. So now I come in here and there are the dots, like that. So if you're looking to get like a super soft but really intense color, you can set the hardness very low and the spacing, kind of let that spacing get to the point where just when those little dots are starting to kind of get visible within that line down there, you see that? They're just starting to separate. I'm going to pull it in just a little bit more. And what you can do, let me turn the opacity down there, turn the flow down there, I'll talk about those in a second. And now I get this really soft gradient that I can kind of play with and layer. See how I get that really nice soft like shadow effect? So spacing and hardness are your buddies. Now I would love to be able to give you a number and be like, you want to keep it at 7% hardness and 30% spacing and 40% opacity and this much flow. I can't do that. I can't give you a magic number. It's always going to be shifting. It's always going to be playing. You're going to be like an organ player, like working your feet, working your hands, working your hotkeys, working this, just to get like what you need to have happen in any one section happening. But once you get to know this and this, the world's your oyster. So let me get rid of these real quick. Actually, let me show you guys real quick before I do that. What's happening up here? So. Up here, we've got, don't worry about mode for now. One of my pet peeves as a professional artist is when I see people use too many of what I call like the magic layers, like glow and dodge, and like within the comic industry, if they see dodge in there or glow, they're like, you don't know what you're doing. Let the color, let your work express that for you. You don't want to be all like, and I need a shadow, so multiply, and I need a highlight, and highlight layers, and glow layers, and pen light layers, and that is allowing the computer to speak for you rather than your work speaking for itself. So don't rely on those magic layers if you absolutely don't have to. So don't worry about this for now. We'll talk about that in just a little while, but forget about this for now. Worry about like controlling your pen, controlling your flow and your opacity, and controlling your color. So in terms of opacity, this right here is how opaque your color is. Let me turn this all the way up. Let me turn the spacing all the way down. Let's turn the hardness all the way up. Okay. So I've got my opacity at like, let's take it down to like 40%. You can kind of see through that a little bit ghosty. But if I take the opacity all the way up, yeah, you can't see through that. Yeah, that's a nice thick line. You can't see through it. Yeah, so opacity is just how see-through the color is that you're laying down. So you can do all these lovely, really translucent layers and get all kinds of really nice effects where the color behind is bleeding through. Flow means, think of it like a airbrush tip. How much paint is flowing through the tip of that airbrush is your flow level here. So like if I take that flow down to like only like 19%, only 19% of that paint's passing through the tip of the airbrush nozzle. But if I take the flow all the way up to 100, let's take the opacity up to 100, yeah, all the paint's flowing through there. Yeah, it's just like, so think of it in terms of how translucent your paint is and how much paint is flowing through the tip. So these two guys are your buddies. Now this guy right here, this little globe with a pencil, when you click him, notice what happens down here. It's like a soft gradient in, then hardness, and then a gradient out. So you can get some like really fun like in and out effects on that. So you can get like soft beginning and press down and soft exit. Oh, that's nice, yeah. Turning that off, it's just one color, in, out, good, you're done. Over here, that's airbrush, and well, quite frankly, you can really get a lot of that airbrush effect just by kind of playing through here like that. See, same thing. But it's fun when you're doing all kinds of other stuff we'll talk about there in a minute. This guy right here, this little bullseye, that turns it into like a brush tip, a thick to thin motion. So when you're working on your tablets, let me get a smaller brush here. Light pressure, big pressure, light pressure, big pressure. You see how that affects the quality of the line, so you get a thick to thin line? Whenever you're doing something from nature, like tree barks or rocks or anything like that, that guy's going to be your buddy. He's going to be your friend, because nature is, the kids have a term for it, they call it random AF. Lean into that, okay? Nature abhors pattern. You very rarely find pattern in nature. When you do, it's all like, look at that spider web, look at that nautilus shell. Oh, isn't nature amazing? But like 90% of nature is just like, yeah, what ifs? So lean into that what ifs nature. All right. right, so that's the basics of how to use your brushes. So let's get back into actually making some art here. Oh, look at that. I did that on that layer. And delete. Yes. Oopsie doodle. Make a new layer. Let's grab some gradients again. Gradient bucket fill. Whoosh, all the way down. Boom. Done, son. Beautiful. Let's come back on up here. Let's actually play with that sky now. So I'm going to come to my sky and background layer. Let's start building a world. Let's Bob Ross this bad boy. I'm going to go over here to my paintbrush. I'm going to come over here. I'm like, okay, so let's say this is like a sunset in Hollywood. You know, you get all those pretty skies. Let's get in there. Oops. So I'm going to take a brush. I'm going to pick a nice bright color. I like to personally work from light to dark. That way I know where my light source is and I know how far to push my shadows in my world. I can always go back and add more. I can always take it away. Once again, that's the beauty of digital. So I know that with my sketch, like this is going to be the basic, like far distant mountains back here, and my sun is setting behind those mountains. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to make sure that I don't really want to point on that brush. I'm going to take that hardness down real low. I'm going to take that spacing up quite a bit here. So let me show you guys. So I'm going to take that spacing up so I get a real loose line. I want that real loose line. And now I'm going to come in here using very light pressure. Now that is just too darn bright for me. Why is it too darn bright? Because my opacity and my flow are all the way up. I'm going to want this to be a very subtle first layer. So I'm going to take that opacity down to about 30 and take the flow down about 50, 60, somewhere around there, real loose. And the more you work with these things, the more you're going to start to find like, yeah, I get it, it's just a slide. You just slide the scale. You just, it does the thing until I tell it to do the thing, and then it did the thing. Yay! So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to start laying in like that sun's probably setting behind those hills. So I'm just getting in there. I'm going to be like, okay, that's where some sun's going to live. All right. So my light source is disappearing behind the hills, so that's going to be like pretty much the brightest point. I might get in there, little bit more brightness, just right behind that castle, just to really give myself just a bit more to kind of play with. But because I'm using such low opacity and such low flow, I'm getting these really soft edges as well. Now we're going to start transitioning up into a really nice, I think, bright orangey pink sky. Let's grab a nice like, nice like pinky color. Let's come in here and kind of find those edges. Like, let's pull that through there. Ooh, that's fun. Ooh, that's nice. Ooh, that's good. Ooh. All right. Then I'm going to start traveling up into that night sky. So let's head on down to some like deeper blues. Going to come in here. Let's kind of find all that. Pull that in there. And notice how I'm going right on top of that sketch. I'm not coming in here and being all like, and you have to get right on the edge of the cloud. We're still in around the cloud. No, I want that, all this color lives together in the same world. You want it to move around. You want that ambient light. You want that radiated light just moving all around. So I'm going up in here like this. And I'm just going to come in here. So now I kind of want these colors to blend a little bit. So I'm going to take that hardness down way low. I'm going to take that spacing way far. And I'm going to take my opacity down real low. I'm going to come in with very light pressure and just start layering this darker blue right on top that top edge of that pink, just like that. Now I know a lot of people are like, but I need a blending tool. I need a blending tool. I want a tool that's just a finger and it blends and it does this and it blends. Yeah, but that's once again the computer doing the hard work for you. So let me show you once again what I'm talking about. Let's grab a darker kind of a deep purple for that night sky. A little more purple. A little more purple. A little bit more. There we go. Let's come up here using very light pressure. My opacity is super low. I can come in here and just start adding just a little bit of extra darkness just by using very, very little pressure on the tip of my stylus. And just let these colors kind of layer on top of each other. Let's add just a little bit more. Take that opacity up a bit more. But because my brush is so soft, I'm getting these gentle transitions between the color. So let's say down here, I want to pull some more of this yellow up into that orange, just a little bit. I'll take that opacity down real low, maybe take that flow down real low, and I'll come in here. In fact, I'm going to turn that on so I get this soft in and out. That gives me more of that like random, weird, uncontrolled, natural quality. So I'm going to come in here and just gently, kind of fluff in just a little bit more of that brightness right down here in these bottom areas, just a little bit. Okay, that looks like a pretty good base for that sky. Now, I can come in later and I can add things like stars and all kinds of extra clouds, but all I'm doing right now is just trying to figure out what color and what light lives in what area. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. I'm going to move on to doing some clouds now. So I'm going to come up here, boop, new layer, above the old layer, always above the old layer. Sketch lives on top. Your line work always lives on top. Everything else builds on top of each other. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say clouds, like that, and clouds. Let's come in here and let's say, okay. Now, another reason why I say paint from life or paint in real life, and I do say paint from life as well, paint real things in real world environments, because all of that will help you build realistic feeling worlds. So now I'm thinking, okay, if my light source is down here, that means the tops of my clouds up here are the farthest thing from that light source. So they're going to be pretty dark. So I can stick with that background purple and get in there and start filling in all the tops of these clouds way, way far away. And what I'm doing is I'm using these really tight little like circular motions like that. I'm just coming in and letting my hand kind of go on a little hobbit adventure. Like, where am I going? What am I doing? Where am I going? What am I doing? Where am I going? Where does it even go? Where does it even go? I don't even know. I don't even know. And the trail. Ooh, ooh, where's that? Ooh, where's that go? Ooh, ooh, like that. Turn that up. Come on in here. And I'm just going to let them kind of wrap on down. Little loopy loops. Loopy, loopy, loop. Loopy, 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 loop. Loopy, loop. Just like that. I don't like that one. I don't like that one either. There we go. Come up in here, get a little bit more darkness. Just start layering it right on down. Just pulling that right on in. Same thing with this bad boy back here. I'm going to come in, use that darkness from the top there. Just make all these tiny little loop-de-loops and let them come right on in. Let them come in. Let them play. This cloud's their buddy. This is their mama cloud. They're hanging out with their mama cloud. Let them play. Now, with clouds, I like to tell my students the best advice I can give you, poofy on the top, flat on the bottom, farts on the edges. Yeah. These little trailing babies over here, these what we call cloud farts, really tell the story of like these guys move and they're traveling, little bits are getting left behind on the edges. But if you were to go outside right now and look at a cloud, clouds live on pressure systems. So the bottoms of them are relatively flat. They're not flat, it's not a table, but they're relatively flat. The top is the part that's just going crazy, going nuts. So you can really get in there and let these guys go a little nuts. Now, I want to be able to know where the edge of this cloud is versus like the edge of that night sky. So I might come down here to the area where it's just starting to transition, maybe pick up some of that purpley pink. Come back over here, and what I'm going to do is give myself just a little bit more flow and opacity, just a little bit, maybe a little bit more hardness, just a little bit. I'm going to come in. I'm just going to gently find where the edge of that cloud is. Where's that edge? Just to kind of give myself, where's that edge? Where'd it go? Where did it go? There it is. There's that buddy. There's our guy. There's our friend. Not too much though. Here's a little artist secret, you guys. Highlights are a sucker's game. People love to look at highlights and go, oh my gosh, look at all the highlights. But with highlights, the true matter is, the less you use, the more important they actually become. Too much, and it looks like, it got snowed on, it's confetti time, sparkle magic. If that's what you're into, I'm not the boss of you, go for it, have fun, I don't care, But less you use, the more important they become. Now I'm going to take this same sort of purple and be like, oh, well I bet towards the middle of this cloud, I'm still making those like whoop, 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 just like little circular motions with my brush, just going loop, 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 loop. I'm just going to build myself some little secondary fluffies that are just kind of living right on that inside. It's on that outer edge, right at the very top, where it's farthest away from our light source, that you're going to get that really harsh, bright, dark edge on the edge of that cloud. And notice how none of this is super planned out. I'm just going in and letting my hand go on a little adventure. Let's grab a slightly brighter color now. Let's come in and start adding a little bit down here towards the bottom. That's all that brightness from our setting sun starting to hit the bottom edge of this cloud, right through here. And we're just building that on up. Maybe this guy back here, maybe he's got just a little bit hanging out right here on this bottom edge. Let it build right on up. And notice how, like, if I were to turn off this first layer here, boom. See how much is actually colored? Not a lot. Using that first radiated background color really does help to fill in a lot of those gaps because you're building color on top of color on top of color. So, going back over to clouds, let's grab a little bit of that darker blue again. And notice how I'm picking the colors from the world that I've already established. Once again, all the color is living in the world together. I want it to move around in that world. So I'm using my color picker to really get in there and start finding those edges. So I'm going to come in here, add just a little bit of that extra darkness. I'm keeping it real loose right now. Just like with my sketch, you want to start loose and then work tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. So I start as loose as possible and then come in and work tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. So maybe there's a little dark edge here. Maybe there's a little bit of an edge, kind of right on the edge of this cloud, right through here, and just creep right on down. Now I think I'm going to grab pink, maybe even make it a brighter pink. Let's get a little nuts. Want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. That's from Batman. Let's roll in here. A little bit of that pink, right across, just a little kiss of that pink, right across the bottom of that cloud. That bottom edge, kind of come forward, let it play a little bit. And that's the other thing. You hear me say this a lot, but if you ain't playing, you're working too hard. You got to be playing. If you're not having fun, you ain't doing it right. Here we go. So now I just got a little bit of pink, kind of living in those clouds. Come back down here. I'm going to pick the brightest of my light sources. I'm going to go back over to my brush. And now I'm going to come in here and say, where are those edges? Just like I did with the top here, where's the edges on the bottom of that cloud? Where's that light bouncing off against the very bottom of that cloud shape? And now I can just pull that bad boy right across. Maybe there's even just a few little wispy guys, way, way, way far away, just kind of picking up some of that, a little bit of that sunlight, just moving through the world. There's being clouds, maybe a little pink one. And all I'm doing is playing. And I haven't spent a lot of time on this. So if later I'm like, you know what? Don't like is dead to me. I actually wanted like a super deep night sky. I don't want none of this dumb cloud noise no more. Get rid of it. It's just a layer. It is not the boss of you. You're the boss. Okay? So I think I need a little bit more brightness on the edge of that cloud. And then we'll move on to actually building out the rest of this world. I just really wanted to kind of like talk to you guys about light. And clouds are a great way to kind of show you how to really use the soft aspects of your brush rather than trying to use a blending tool to do it for you. All right, feeling pretty good about that. Real quick before I move on, I think I am going to go ahead and throw in some stars in my sky. For that, I'm going to use a harder brush, so the hardness is all the way up. And I'm going to come over here. I'm going to grab a lightish blue. I don't want to start with pure white. Whenever you use pure white as a highlight, you want to use it as little as possible, because the brightest that a point of like light can be is pure white. So like if you look at the sun, don't do that, but if you look at the sun, it is white. If you look at like straight through a light bulb, it is pure white. If you look at like the center of a lightsaber, the center of the lightsaber, the thing from which the actual color is emanating, pure white. It's the radiant light, the light on the edges that gives the color of the light. So I don't want to pick white as my star color, but I am going to turn my opacity and my flow up. And I'm going to come in here, turn off this bad boy because I don't want to have that soft edge on my brush. So I'm going to come up here. I'm just going to start big star, little star, baby star. Stars like to live in clusters. So I give myself like a couple little clusters, like 4 or 5, and I'm always changing the size. So I'm over here like tapping on my hotkeys like da 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 on the other one, just to kind of keep things like a little random. Because once again, nature is random. Let that come through. And then I can come back with some pure white. And like maybe on some of these bigger boys, boom, boom, boom. Just like a really like radiant glow. Maybe there's just a few like super bright ones. Heck, I could even come in with like a nice soft pink and get like, you know, a fun like little like strange pink little star every now and then. But you don't want to go too crazy with stars, because too many stars and it starts looking like snow. So, there you go. All right, so that's fun. Okay, so now let's move on. So we're moving from our background forward. Next thing is going to be these little mountains way, way, way far away. So I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to name this Far Distance here. So now that's my far distant layer. Let's pull this up a bit. There we go. Now I've got these just mountain shapes, but they are blocking the light. The sun has set behind them, so they're going to be darker, but they're still color. Avoid using black as much as you can. If you remember your Monet, of course, he was famously said that black is the death of color. It takes down the chroma in a color, it takes down the intensity of a color. White kind of does the same thing. It just turns things into pastels. So if you, bless you, if you want to have intense color, stay with more intense saturated color over here. Down here, this is the death of color down here. So I'm going to pick a color that's like, yeah, okay, let's see, mountains, earthy. Think about what is it. Remember your Marcus Aurelius, of each thing ask what it is, right? So, read is basically what I'm saying. So I'm going to pick like a reddish color, mountains, rocks, reddish. So I'm going to pick something dark and reddish and over here in the darker spectrum, but I'm not going to dip down here where it's super saturated and super black. I'm not going to come over here where the saturation's low, it's just a gray. I'm going to stay in this area over here. So I'm going to grab something like, yeah, that's pretty good. A little more saturation. There we go. Now I'm going to come over here. I'm going to grab my little brushy brush. I'm going to make sure my hardness is pretty darn high. I'm going to take my spacing down because with this, I want it more solid. More solid. I can always like take the layer and make it a little softer because it's in the far distance just by running it through a filter. But for now, I want to know where the edges of this mountain are. So I'm going to come in here. I'm just going to be like, okay, this shape, this shape, this shape, this shape, mountains is shape. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Did you see what I just did? I came in and I did this. I was like, I don't even care. I don't even care. That reads as a more natural shape than coming and going, here is a mountain. His name is Bob. Here is another mountain. His name is also Bob. Here's a third mountain. His name is Fred. Nope, it's Bob. You guys who have been on my panels this week are like, she really likes Bob. But yeah, this just looks like shark's teeth. Don't do that. Don't do that. Unless that's what you're into. I'm not the boss of you. You can do whatever you want. Not the boss of you. So come in here. I like to think of it as, let me show you one more time, as like writing an angry check and being all like, Dear Austin Energy, here's your blood money. Like that. So once I come in and I fill this in, this is going to read as a much more natural background because it's random. Keep in mind the random nature of nature. So let these odd little weird pops and uncontrolled little hills and valleys and strange little things just happen. Because once again, this reads as a more natural landscape than if I were to be all like, hello, 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 hello. Okay, patterns, get those patterns out of there. You want patterns out of your life. So let it be random, let it be rocky. So now I've got this far distant background. I want to play with just this without affecting my clouds, which are now behind it, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this layer and I am going to lock that layer. Now what that means is that I come in with a new color now, so like I take this and I come in, the only layer that's affected is the layer I'm working on. So that means I can play with just these mountains and not affect any other part of this painting. So that is just this little checkerboard right here. There we go. So what I want to do now is start finding the shadows. This is Mordor where the shadows lie. Let's find some shadows. Actually, before I do that, let's do just a touch of highlighting. I'm going to grab some of that yellow from the background, the brightest part of my background, right through there. Actually, you know what? I think this mountain is just a little bit too big. So what am I going to do? I'm going to grab my eraser tool. Eraser on 100%, flow on 100%, hardness, woo, all the way up. I'm going to come in here, and what I'm going to do is maybe cut out a little chunk of this mountain right in the middle, just to give myself a little more drama, because I know I'm going to have a castle living right there. I want that castle spire to kind of come up. So I'm just going to come in here and shave off just a little bit of that mountain. So that feels a little bit more dramatic to me now. So you can play with it. Don't feel like your first chance is your first and only chance. Play with it. So if I don't like it, delete the layer. Try it again. No big deal. So I'm going to come in here now. I've relocked my layer. I've gotten a nice light color on my brush. This time I'm going to take, because I want to be soft with my light source, I'm going to take my opacity and my flow down. I'm going to take my hardness down. And I'm going to come in here and right where that sun is kind of setting right through those little hills, I'm going to come in here and just say, yeah, I've got a little bit of that light's creeping right on through, just the edges, like that. So let some of that sun just radiate right where I think it's setting on down. Let that be a little bit glowing right through there. Then, now it's time for me to start finding some shadows. I'm going to turn my sketch off real quick. Okay. So now I'm going to come over here. I'm going to repick that brown I had before because I want to stay within the same family of color. I think because I'm working in a world that has a lot of blues and pinks, I definitely want to lean into like a nice deep blue or a deep purple for a nice shadow. So I'm going to grab this nice deep blue. Kind of lives in the same family as our deep blue and our night sky. In fact, let's try a little experiment. If I just click right there, grab that, let's see how that looks as a shadow. For a shadow, I'm going to come in here. I'm going to start making a few more harder choices. So I'm going to get a little harder on the edge. I'm going to come in here and be like, okay, where are the shadows? I'm being real loose real loose. Let's take this opacity down just a bit. Let's take the flow down just a bit. I'm going to start finding those shadows. Now notice that I'm building shadows, but I'm building them with color. So I've got the same color as my night sky, kind of moving around in here, just a few, wherever that light's not hitting, I bet there's a little shadow in there. But then, now that I've got that, I'm going to pump it down. I'm heading down into this corner down here, which has got the saturation, but it also has the black in it, so we're getting darker. I might actually even move it just a little bit more in the blue direction. Now I'm going to come down here. I'm going to take that hardness up. I'm going to take the spacing up a bit, but notice how low the opacity and the flow is yet again. I'm going to turn this on, the guy that makes it like a soft in and out, just because now I want to get a little bit more painterly with it. I don't want to have a lot of really hard edges. So let's say I'm going to zoom in on this mountain over here, just so we can really kind of play with him a bit. So we're building a world. That's the thing. We've already started. All it is just like tap, 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 circle, 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 happy, 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 out, right? So, by the way, if you ever have any questions, raise your hands. I keep looking up, expecting like a million questions. So you guys are just like, secrets. All right, so now I'm going to start finding some hard edges. Where are the really hard edges on this mountain? Let them kind of roll on down, and I'm letting my hand just kind of flow right down the side of that mountain. Can you guys see what I'm doing? Yeah, okay. I'm just letting this kind of come right on down. I'm not scared because I can always just delete this layer, try it again later. But I'm going to be like, where are the edges? Where are those hard little edges on the side of this mountain? Where is the light not hitting? Where is it not touching? Maybe over here there's just a little guy kind of creeping right on down, all those little crevices, crevasses that it kind of pull right on down in there. Maybe there's a couple, just a few. I don't want to get too heavy with this where my light source is because I want that light to still feel like it's radiating. So it's mainly over here on these darker edges this direction. Now I've started to build up a lot of dark on top of that initial brown. I can kind of pick a color from within there and just kind of keep playing. Let's maybe pull some of that through here. Oh, 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 oh. Turn my opacity up a bit. I want a little bit more of this nice juice coming through there. Ooh, oh, 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 that's happening. Oh, 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 oh. There we go. Just kind of letting it flow wherever it wants to go. So now I've got the idea of the edges of some mountains, some edges of some peaks, the edges of just some like rock faces. If I come over here to this side, notice how it's just soft. There's no real information. We know where there's dark, we know where there's light. But over here, we're starting to really get the idea of the edges. So I'm going to zoom out. Let's do that to the other side as well, just for continuity's sake. And I'm going to come over here. And I'm going to say, oh, where's that edge? Oh, oh, how you living? Oh, oh, how you doing? Oh, 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 oh. Maybe there's a little something right there. Oh, oh, oh. I'm not just doing this for you. I do the same noises at home. This is not for your benefit. Sometimes I'll talk smack to my canvases, whether they're real or digital. And I'll just be like, what do you want, Deborah? Oh. And my husband will be like, you talking to me? And I'll be like, is your name Deborah? Me and Deborah are having a conversation. Deborah's about to find out. Anyway, so now I've got some edges. Now I'm starting to get some like real intense ideas of like where the edges on my little hill and valley is. So now I can kind of come over here. And this time I've picked a lighter color from like near the center where that light source is. So I'm going to come over here and be like, yeah, something nice and bright. Something within that bright spectrum. Still within that neutral tone that's already within the mountains. And I can come in here. And I'm going to take that flow up just a bit more, take that hardness up a bit more, take that spacing up a bit more, keep it nice and loose. Then maybe take the spacing down a little bit. There we go. I'm going to start popping in some little highlights. Like where are those really bright spots that really start to pop against that sunlight? Keeping it real loose. Keeping it real loose. I don't want to do too many out here in the really dark spots because these guys are all the way on the other side of that mountain. It's already dark over there. So if I came in here and I was all like, here's some highlights, that looks really weird, right? Because that's already in the dark spot. So you don't want to go crazy with super bright highlights in this area. For that kind of area, if you do want to highlight, like maybe there's like a little hill that you're just in love with and it's your buddy, it's your boo, come over to an area where it's just a little bit more darker but still within the highlighted range. Like the sun is still hitting that range, and then kind of maybe bring some of those guys out to play. Just a few, not too many. And see how that feels just a little bit less dramatic? It's already the sun's setting. It's a nice peaceful day. Killing all the things in Hyrule, because Link is a murder machine, let's be real. Whenever I play Zelda, I like to imagine that he wakes up with all the memories. It's all like, Link, you've forgotten everything. I remember all the murder. You're wrong. So, you don't know to whom you speak. I am the hero of the winds. I have killed so many Ganons. You don't know what you're talking about. All right. So, now I'm getting these nice little bits of highlight poking here and there. Now, I can sit here and finagle this mountain and really get in there. Let me just show you what I mean. Grab some more of that dark purple. Let's go even darker. Let's take it up into a little bit more of like a burgundy red. Let's come in here and let's get real tiny with our brush. And like maybe there's some like, you can zoom in and 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 zoom in. Like right here, there's your cave. I mean, you can do that. Sometimes I do. I'll do like little Easter eggs and be like, this one's just for Mama. Yeah. But when you zoom out from a distance, it's like, okay, yeah, I see it. It's mountains. You got stuff happening. Mountains. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, this is sweet. So like, don't worry too much about your far distant background. I just really been trying to illustrate to you guys like the process of painting. So if I want to have like just some real like tight, like, yeah, there's like a real deep little crevasse. There, the crevasse. There we go. You guys know what I'm talking about, yeah. Oh, I see a hand. What you got? That's a great question. I'm still just using the same brush I started with. Now, my Photoshop likes to cycle between different brushes that just automatically kind of like fill the need of what it is I'm doing. Oh, that's a great question. Right now, I'm still using the flow and the opacity a little under halfway, but the brush itself, hardness is down real low, but for this, like, I can do like a real hard edge if I want. This far away and with lines this small, it's not going to make that big a difference. Right now, all I'm doing is kind of finding like just some really little hard edges here and there. But the brush itself, with something this far away, keep it as loose as possible. And the softer your brush is, the looser it is. The harder your edges, the tighter it is. So I'm going to save the truly tight stuff for the stuff that's like super duper close to me. So let me just get a few more. So, okay, pretty good mountains, but I don't want to, we've already spent an hour in here, so I don't want to belabor the point too much. Actually, I'm going to get to the end of the painting here. Yeah, what you got?
Sorry, this is more of a meta question.
Oh, what you got?
I'm kind of hard of hearing. When you get out your questions, is there any chance you could repeat them? Because I have no idea what.
Oh, I'm so sorry. She was asking what kind of brush. Sorry about that. Yeah. So I will repeat. Thank you. Thank you for reading that up. Good question. Good question. Good question, you guys. Yeah. So see the difference? Like over here, we've got a lot of information. Let me zoom in a bit here, just a bit. So we've got a lot of information so far, and it's all been very loose. This is just world building. Like if this were a piece I were going to like sell in the artist alley, I would be taking maybe 2 to 3 days on it, but I would start this loose. So let me get over here on this other mountain real quick, just so that this all matches up nice and cute. No. There we go. And I'm going to come over here, brush, brush, brush. And then we'll move down to really getting into our foreground, which is where there's a lot more detail. So I'm going to come in here and just make myself just a couple extra mountains, blah, 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 mountains. Okay, good. All right, so now we're moving on to the next part. I'm going to pull up my sketch. Oh, okay, that's where that castle lives. All right, sweet skis. So new layer, castle layer. Castle layer. Okay. Castle is spelled real dumb. Okay, just saying. All right, so once again, the light is blocking it, but I want this piece to still be like a really like fun earth tone-y kind of Hyrule piece. So I'm going to choose like a darker bluish green to start with. I'm going to get in there, hardness up, spacing down, really get in there with my opacity and my flow all the way up, because I just want to know like where it lives. Where does this, and notice what I'm doing. I'm covering up the bottom edge of my mountains. I don't want to have any of that background layer peeking through in between. I see that hand. What's going on?
Yeah, so it's not necessarily with this painting that you're doing.
Yeah.
If you wanted to, how would you go about rendering a textured canvas?
Oh, a textured canvas.
Is that possible?
That
Or
is
is
absolutely
everything
possible. A lot of times when I'm trying to get the idea of like texture, like this is supposed to look like it's actually on a canvas, there are programs that can give you a physical, not a physical, but a digital physical canvas to work on. Corel Painter is famous for being able to do that. It can generate any sort of textured paper, surface, canvas, sand, whatever it is you want to work on. The question was, by the way, how can you paint on a digital canvas? It'll generate that for you, and then what makes Corel Painter so powerful is that it can simulate real-world things within a digital environment. It used to be my baby. It used to be my go-to sweet, sweet lover, but the past updates have been so buggy I can no longer recommend it. So what I do as a workaround, if I wanted to make it look like I'm actually painting on a canvas, I will do this entire painting as is digitally, and then I will scan a canvas. Yeah. Then I will take that scan of the canvas, I will set that to a low opacity multiply layer, and then layer that on top, tweak it a little bit with my levels and my color saturation, just kind of play with it, maybe erase here and there, maybe push here and there. Boom, now it looks like it's on a canvas. Done skis. Yeah. So you can scan a lot of textures, bring them into your digital environments. That's part of what's so fun about digital. For instance, I did a dinosaur drawing not too long ago, and I really needed some like really good like weird textured fold in the skin. And no matter how much I sat there and digitally played with it, it still came out looking painterly. And what I wanted it to look like was more like physical, actual skin. So I pulled out my scanner and I scanned the back of my knuckles. Yeah, I did. And I got some like big old workman hands, man. I've been a sculptor and a builder and a painter my whole life. I do not have ladylike hands. So I was able to pull like, you know, the scars and texture from the back of my own wrinkly hands and just go multiply, very low opacity, layer, boom. And now suddenly there's actual skin folds within the painting I already did. So I highly recommend if you want to add real world texture to your items, either take a photo or scan whatever it is you're trying to do, make it a black and white image, throw it on with a multiply layer, boom. That's one of those magic tricks I was talking about. Don't rely on those too heavily. You want that to be like a little like chef kiss at the end. You don't want that to be the main piece. That's the thing. Did that answer your question at all? Yeah, awesome, yay. So now what I'm doing is I'm getting in there, and let's go ahead and say the castle layer extends to about middle ground. So I'm going to come in here and just kind of fill up this middle ground until about when this canyon starts to open up through here. So yeah, I think that's about good. Once again, now that I have that, I'm going to lock that layer so that now I can play on just it without really affecting the mountains. So now, once again, I will grab a bit of that bright yellow. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to turn the hardness down, spacing up, take that there, and take that there. Bye, you guys. Thanks for coming. It's okay. Bye-bye. I love you anyway. Okay, bye-bye. I'll never forget you. Call me. All right. I'm taking this down. And I want this to be a very subtle effect. Just a little bit of this light's escaping past the mountains, not too much. So it's going to fill up towards the middle of Hyrule Field here. I'm going to pull off towards the edges, just to give myself a little bit of a nice bright lightness right through these middle areas. My goodness, that's dark on that screen. Okay, I'll have to keep that in mind. So, I'm pulling some of that yellow light from these mountains out through here. Maybe there's just a, whoop, that'll happen. Maybe there's just a little bit, kind of passing through that mountain, just kind of kissing here and there, just here and there. Then, I'll re-grab that original green, come back over here, maybe find a nice darker kind of a bluish color. Yeah. Come back in here. I'm going to raise that hardness up just a bit. I'm going to start just kind of pulling. Just pulling. Now I know there's going to be a castle back here, so I can go ahead and start going, yeah, this is where the shadow of the castle is. Yeah. Throw that right in there. And then maybe down in this little valley, this, good Lord. Yeah. This little hill right through here. I'm just going to drag some of these shadows. I got these locked at home. It only does it when I'm doing it in front of people, you know, to make me look like a cool kid. All right. And now I'm going to raise that hardness up. I'm going to raise my opacity up. I'm going to raise my flow up. I think I'm maybe going to turn on that thick to thin pin so that I can get in here and start making a little bit more like distinct hard edges, just here and there. And I do want to get this thing done fairly quickly because I'm sure you guys all have questions. I'd love to be able to demonstrate some answers for you. Now, as things get closer to you, you start to see a bit more detail. So I bet out here in Hyrule Field, you can start to see just a couple of those like weird little painterly blades of grass. So I'm going to start to kind of layer some of those in a bright first. Here they go. Here they go. I'm getting real loose with it. Here they go. Oh, baby. having grass adventures, thinking grass thoughts, doing grass things. What kind of adventures? None of my business. None of my business. Sorry, but grass adventures. Great, you guys are right. Grass adventures. Just kind of laying those in there, letting that wind kind of push them along. And once again, no names, no backstories. And notice how I'm going right on top of those shadows I just did. All you did was put that in there so that your grass, your world has somewhere to live. So get in there, don't be afraid of covering stuff up. Like if I were super afraid, I could build myself another layer and say, you know what, I'm scared, I just want to be able to protect the work I just did, throw another layer on top, and do all this grass on top of that. But all I'm doing right now is kind of moving around within the world, just trying to like find where are all the movement, where's all the fun stuff that's happening within this world, all this fun stuff. Let's grab some of this. So once again, I'm picking colors from within the world I've already built so that I can let them kind of move around within those same spaces. Now things that are closer to you look big, things that are far away look tiny, so I'm using tiny, tiny little like hash marks, way in the back, little baby marks. Just that there's like little kisses of light, way in the tiny little babies, way in the back, so small. Oh dear. No Photoshop. No. No. Sometimes Photoshop's like, stop it. You go too fast. With Corel Studio, sometimes I draw so fast that the computer's like, what did you just do? And it makes this very strange broken mark. And I spent like 2 days with customer service, and the guy was like, look, we've gone through everything. How fast are you drawing? I'm like, pretty fast. He's like, yeah, slow down. I'm like, it's like, I can't slow down. I can't. Gotta go fast. So now I'm picking up some of that blue for my shadow. I'm just gonna kind of roll through. Maybe there's some like super dark little bits of grass. And you see how I still haven't used any black, but I'm getting the idea of shadow just through use of color. See all that? So now, I'm really starting to get the idea of grass, of texture, of fields. Now, I'm going to show you a little bit about how to use a texture brush in just a minute, but I really want you guys to see how just using directional brush strokes, small brush strokes, layer them on top of each other, you can really start to get the idea of like fields and fields and fields of grass just by using the brush, just by letting it be like a real painting and letting your brush work for you. Let the brush do all that hard work for you, right? So now I feel like I've got some grass. I'm going to go ahead and start building my castle. So I think I'm going to grab that nice deep purple over here in my mountains. I'm going to go ahead and take it even darker. I'm going to come over here, opacity high. This all looks good. I'm going to roll up through here and go be like, uh-oh. Oh, what just happened? Anybody? Anybody? I'm trying to draw my castle, but oh no. Oh no. What? I saw my hand.
You're laughing, you're late.
Yes, good job. Somebody's paying attention. Haha, yes. So if I want to get this castle drawn above that old layer, I've got to come over here and unlock that layer, and now, boom, I can draw on top of that old layer behind. Once again, that layer is not being affected. Let me turn this opacity up because I want this to be nice. Well, maybe not that much. I want to see a little bit of that ambient light kind of flowing through, so maybe I don't want all the opacity. That way I can do like extra marks, and kind of layer out some stuff. Get in there, start building out a castle. And you see how like if I don't use a super dark opacity, you can get like just little bits of light and dark kind of starting to pop through. But the more you go back and forth and 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 back, the more opaque it becomes. So like you can get ambient light kind of wrapping it around just by taking your opacity way down to like 55%. Cocky. Coming through and like see how you can kind of see it's a little bit translucent like that. So I can like build the basic shape of the castle. There are those weird arm thingums. Castle, 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 castle. And I've got like, okay, it's just a weird blob. But if I turn my opacity up a bit more and I come back and I do a second pass, oh, there's some shadows. Oh, those dumb little spirals. All little holes in the wall. Oh. Come on top. Let's do some little bits, more bits, more bits, more bits, more bits. Keep it real loose. Keep it real. Now the difference between something like a human hand builds versus something nature builds, nature is random. Things that like human hands build, cities, structures, things like that, straight lines. Nature doesn't like straight lines very often. So whenever you see things are like, this is clearly a pattern and this is clearly straight lines, that looks like a human built it. So if you're looking for nature, keep it loose. If you're looking for something that's a little bit more like a human thing, patterns, straight lines, humans, what's up? Now, I want to give it just a little bit of a highlight, so I'm going to take the opacity way on down. I'm going to keep that hardness pretty high though, because these are like hard edges on the edges of this castle. So I draw too fast. So I'm going to come in here. I'm just going to start adding just little pops of light, just here and there. That's where the light's kind of breaking through. Maybe you can kind of see through. There's some windows in there. Edge, 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 edge. A couple little things here and there. Okay, I'm not going to do like the whole like gated community and everything that is Hyrule Field. I'm not going to worry about any of that. But all right, so castle. And when I zoom on out, yay! Now we got something in the middle that's visually interesting. Hooray! Now, if I wanted to like give it a little bit of a glow, I can relock that layer because once again, it's on that same layer. So I can lock that layer, grab a little bit of that bright yellow from behind, take my hardness down way low, I got my opacity down way low, and what I can do, boop, boop, is come in and just give myself like a real soft glow. A glow. A glow. What? So much glow. Until it disappears. But you can make it glow just by using your brush. See, so I really want to like drive that point home to you guys. You don't have to use the specialty brushes. You don't have to use the magic brushes. Let color, let opacity, let flow, let hardness, and let spacing do that for you. Now, let's move down to like this little valley down here. It's going to be really close to us. We're going to start to get a lot more really tight details. So once again, I'm going to make another layer. I'm going to name this foreground. That's not how you spell foreground. Okay. So on foreground, this is going to be where it's a bit more rocky. I'm going to grab some like nice earthy, deep, like orangey kind of color. Yeah, a little bit more orange. Yeah. Let's go in there. Opacity, up. Flow, up. Yes. Hardness, up. Spacing, down. Remember, if you want a nice tight line, hardness, up. Spacing, down. So I'm going to roll over here. I'm just going to kind of let this start to overlap. Like, where's the edge? I like to go ahead and like redraw the whole thing, just because, like, yeah, I'm going to fill this all in one color, but my little lizard hindbrain is going to remember, like, the shape of this sketch, what I just did. So it's a kind of a good thing, especially when also, this is a technique for painting in real life, because when you do it in real life with real material, your brush strokes will read the motion, the direction of your hand. So even if you're going to paint it all one color, if you're still going to come back and be like, oh, this is the top and that's the bottom, your brushwork in your hand will read that back to you. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to come in here, that's the edge there, there's the top of this there, la 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 la. Now a good question is, hey, why don't you just use the fill bucket? Well, I could, but, and this is just a habit I picked up from coloring comic books. Whenever you color line art, I know that a lot of major advances have been made, especially with Studio Paint in fill bucket technology. But industry standard-wise, you don't want to do that because there's a good chance you might miss a pixel here and there around the edges of your line work, and then you've got big, gaping, weird, transparent holes and giant white pops in the middle of nowhere. So industry standard, you have to do your flatting by hand. It takes forever. But I know a lot of technology has been made in that process, but I'm still pretty old school. I do it the old school way. All right, so now, once again, I'm going to grab some of that yellow light because that's my light source. That's the color of my radiant light. I'm going to go back to a nice soft brush, take the hardness down, take the spacing up, take that flow down, take this down. I'm going to head right on up here. Like probably, oh, I did it bad. I should have did it good. I did it bad. I did not lock my layer. Now I can come in. There we go. And the edge over here is probably going to be catching a little bit of that sunlight. Maybe there's a little on this guy right down here. Maybe there's a little over here where we're going to have lunks standing. There we go. Maybe there's a little over here, big old rock, I bet. Something's living right over here. And then down in the valley, that's where it's going to get a little dark. But once again, I'm going to choose a color that kind of already lives in the world I've created. So I'm going to pick one of those dark purpley reds from my mountain. I'm going to come down here. Now I want to get a little bit, now I know where my light is. Shadows, because it's so close, they're going to be just a little bit more sharp on the edges. So now I can take the hardness up a bit more here. I'm going to take my opacity up a bit more, but I'm going to keep my flow pretty low. Keep that flow pretty low. Keep that flow pretty low. I'm going to roll in here. I'm going to start finding the edges, the side of my little valley down through here. Just kind of filling that in. And this is where like really like painterly kind of motions start to really come in handy. Now because my opacity is low, every time I do another pass, I get a little bit darker and a little bit darker and a little bit darker. Kind of like working with a marker where you let it dry, then you do another pass, you let it dry, you do another pass, you get those streaks. Let those work to your advantage. Once again, we've already filled this all in with our basic color of the rock. So now we're just trying to find edges in this. So I'm going to roll in here. Whatever's farthest from the light, whatever is like not touching the light, that's where it's going to be darkest. And then I'm going to come in and just start making small marks. Like that's the little edges of rock here and there. Like over here on this side, there's a nice really dark valley in here. Let's really get in there and darken that on up. And over here on this side, I'm going to do one big pass for the underside of that, maybe one here. Then I'm going to come back using shorter, smaller, like edges of rocks, edges of rocks, edges of rocks. Real loose. Keep it real loose. That's the name of the game. Now I can always come back, grab a little brown, come back in here and be like, JK, JK, I actually need some more rocks showing. JK, here they are. There's my rocks. They're my buddies. They're my friends. Come in here and kind of find just a few little loose pebbles here and there. Some of these lines might be a little too straight, so you can get in there and kind of cut back in on them and find those edges. Over here on this side, let's pull that bad boy right on down, just like that. Maybe there's a little bit more of that brown in there. Grab some of that, pull that right on through. But this doesn't feel dark enough to me, so once again, I'm going to go back to my far distant background, find a nice, really deep, dark color that I think, oh, that might be good. Come over here. Not dark enough, not dark enough. A lot of times, it doesn't look dark enough once you get there, so you just got to go pick yourself another color. Go get it. Nice little dark valley, and right through there, cuts right through there. Try to keep this loose because I want to definitely be able to show you guys some stuff. I'm sure you've got questions. Down here, there's water, but that water, man, it's probably super dark because it's not getting a lot of light. So I'm going to choose one of these darker colors from up here in my sky and just kind of come down here and apply a little bit of water. What I don't want to do is come in here and be like, it's so shiny, 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 because there's no light hitting there. There's no light. So what I want to do is just kind of come in here, apply a little bit of water. Maybe there's just the, oh, too bright, too bright. So once again, I'm going to grab a little bit of a color from up here in my night sky. Come down here, just a little bit, something brighter. But mostly it's the colors of the rock that are going to be reflecting back down into that water. Now, whenever you do water, what sells the idea of water is horizontal strokes. When water is left alone to its own devices, it lays flat like a tabletop, okay? Flat like a table. It's only when it's disturbed that it starts doing all kinds of crazy stuff like this. So if you can make your strokes left, right, you can do water in like 3 strokes, you're out. Boom, boom, boom. Good, done. All right. I don't want to go too crazy here because I do want to be able to show you some stuff. So I'm going to take some of this darker color in the background here. I'm going to start finding some like boulders. Let me get really dark here. I want you guys to be able to see what I'm doing. I know you guys are seeing different colors than I am up there. So like I'm going to start finding some hard edges. Where are these boulders? I'm just breaking these up into some weird shapes. Over here, I bet there's a nice dark little crevasse right through there, another little dark edge there. Now I've got a lot of these little dark edges happening, really nice dark pops. But what I can also do is come in and use little pops of highlight with a slightly harder brush and just like find edges of rocks like that. That's a little too bright because once again, the light's not going to be there. But up here on the surface, let's talk about using like a textured brush. So Photoshop comes with a lot of brushes. At home, what I like to do is I like to take a sponge and I will sponge like onto paper, then I'll scan that and I'll turn that into a brush. And it can be like a sea sponge, it could be a dish sponge, but like, you get all these kinds of fun, really crazy, natural, uncontrolled, random textures. I'll take an actual paintbrush and go like tap, 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 just to get these weird little points, scan that, take a photo of that, turn that into a brush, and I'll keep them in here. But for the sake of demonstration, I'm just going to grab this little guy here, and let's grab, like that. I'm just going to come in and start tapping. You guys can't see that, let me make it bright. Woo, let's get real bright. I'm going to start tapping in here. You see how I'm like starting to get just a little bit of a texture, like sand, kind of happening here and there. Now the thing is, if you do it too much, you can see the same texture. It's like, oh, it's just a stamp. She just went stamp, 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 stamp. So what you don't want to do is have too much of the same thing. Once again, avoid pattern whenever possible. So I'm actually going to do it dark because I think that was a little hard to see. Let me show you one more time what I'm talking about. So if I went over here, I went stamp, 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 See how that's the same shape again and again and again? That kind of loses that natural organic quality. So instead of using it like that, what I'm going to do is come over here and go to scattering within my brush tip shape. I'm going to click scattering. If you click that, let's see what scattering does. What scattering does is it plays with how the brush will like rotate within the computer so you don't get the same mark every single time. So I think I'm going to turn the scattering up like that, play with it a little bit like that. So next time I come in, oh, look at that. I get a much more randomized, like weird grouping. Now when I do like a lot of like, you know, fancy brush work at home, I'll use like 5 or 10 different brushes just to make sure like I don't see a pattern. So I'll like have all those weird organic brushes that I have within my computer and layer them and layer them and layer them. And then do a shadow layer, do a highlight layer, do a shadow layer, do a highlight layer, and spend all day doing that and go slowly insane. And then come to a convention and let people know exactly how crazy you've gone. Yay! But let me just get a little bit more, like some sand, living through here, just something to break it up just a bit more. Here we go. Now I know I want Link kind of standing right here, being a bud, being a guy, so I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to name that layer Long. There we go. And I'm going to come in here and just real quick, like the castle, he's going to be mostly in shadow. So I can start dark on him. I don't want to use that fancy brush though, so I want to go back to my brush presets. There we go. Oh, for heaven's sake. Dang it, there we go. All right. Then, hardness, turn my scattering off, because what I want to do now is be able to actually control my line rather than it being crazy. So if I don't turn that scattering off, see how my line's like, yeah! Like, yeah, so I don't want to have to draw like that. That can be super fun though, that can be fun. Just saying. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm just going to get in here. I want to turn my opacity up, because I want him to be in a pretty deep shadow, and I'll just build some highlights out on him, like I said with my castle. Come in here, kind of let that happen. Cap flowing in the wind, cap flowing in the wind. Hair, hair, hair. Ear, hair, ear. Let's turn the opacity all the way up. But okay, let's move up here. Let's see, I'm just being real loose with this right now. Tunic. Hat. Okay. Way too many ears. Alright. Okay, so basic figure. Lock that figure. Once again, I can grab some highlight. He's a little farther away from my light source, so this time I think I'll grab a little bit more of a pink. Take my hardness down a bit, take the opacity down a bit, take the flow down a bit. Just kind of like find, whoa. Maybe not quite that much. Get out of here, Fresh Buddy. Get out of here. Okay. Come in here. Find just some edges. Where's the edge of it? It's like shoulder, maybe a shield back here. Edge of the bow. Once again, I'm working quickly because this has been like an hour and a half of painting, and I do want to be able to answer some questions for you guys. But now I'm just kind of, once again, you find the shape, the overall shape, then you find the highlights. Once you know where the highlights are, then you can come in with a much darker color. Now I'm starting to head down into my darker black. So I can come in here now and like start finding like those really like nice hard edges, some little details in there, but shadow. There, foreshadow hat, yeah. And maybe there's even a little green in this tunic. Why not? I'm not driving, why not? Mostly, it's just that same dark shadow I used earlier. So now we got a figure, but the figure is floating in space. There's nothing to indicate that he's actually standing on the rocks. So now that I know where the figure is, I'm going to come back down to my rock down here. I'm going to grab that shadow color. I'm going to come right back up here, throw a shadow in underneath it. Dun, 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 dun. There we go. There we go. That's it. So is this making sense? I'm going very quickly. I know this is a very loose, rough piece, but I really want you guys to see some, just how fast you can do this. Now, we've got this rock slab up here. What I can do is come in and like, hey, whoa, no Photoshop, no. I can come in and go, hey, I bet there's some little rocks, little cracks. So just kind of radiate on over, radiate on. I bet there one's in a little bit of shadow there. Oh, does it come on down? That's cool, that's cool. I'm just letting my hand kind of go on a little hobbit adventure. Where you going? Where you going? It's fun. Just like with my mountains. Where you going? Where are you going? What's up? Wait, oh, you got a crack? Oh, okay. That's cool. That's cool. You do you, boo. You do you. Oh, that's cool. There we go. Little cracks just kind of moving. Oh, oh, oh. This guy, oh, 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 oh. Little cracks just kind of moving around. And that's just a little extra detail of like, it's not smooth, it's not flat. You start big, get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until you're all like, look at my cracks. And you can call your friends and be like, girl, did you come look at my crack? I'm so proud. You okay there, bud? These are the conversations my friends have with me. Now let's say there's like a stand of trees over here in this area. In fact, I'm not even using my sketch anymore. Let's get rid of it. See, once again, you get to the point where you're like, I don't need you anymore, sketch. It's a painting, goodbye. So I bet there's a little stand of trees over here. I'm going to do a new layer. I'm going to pick like that same darkish blue color I had back here. Come in once again with a high opacity, high flow, and I got rid of my brushes, view. Where are my window? Brushes, brush. There we go. All right, so I'm going to come in here. You, heaven's sake, get out of here. There we go. All right. I'm going to come over here, grab a brush, high opacity. I'm going to come in here and say, okay, I bet there's some trees. Ball brush, happy little trees, happy little trees, happy little trees, happy little trees, happy little trees. Same thing with the clouds. Round little circles, round little circles, round little circles. I don't like how soft that edge is, so what I need to do is come on down. Get over here, you jerk. Okay, there you go. Hardness up. And nice hard edge in that tree. But once again, it's closer to me. I'm going to see a bit more detail. Let me zoom in. It's really hard to see. And I'm once again writing an anger check. I don't even care what's even happening right now. I don't even care. Tree. There's another one here. I don't even care. Not even looking at it. Once I've got that, I'm going to head on over to my layers. And I'm going to lock said layer. Grab some of that light. I'm going to come on over with a nice low opacity, a low flow. So you see it's always opacity, flow, spacing, hardness, opacity, flow, spacing, hardness. The madness ever increasingly building. So, yeah, people are like, is it glamorous being an artist? You're funny. So, send money. Okay. And then just come in, tap in a little bit of the light. Oh, what did I do wrong? Didn't lock the layer. Boop, there we go.
You're on a new layer.
I am on a new layer, you guys. Good job. I didn't lock that layer either. Boop, there we go. And pull on in, a little bit on the edge there. And once again, I want a little bit of a darker side here. You want your mid-tone, your highlight, and then your shadow. So now I'm going to come in with my shadow. And get real loose with the shadow, real loose. Just move it around, just move it around, just move it around, move it around, move it around, move it around, move it around. I'm actually even going to turn that up a bit for the bottom edge. Move it around, 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 just move it around. I'm scribbling, literally scribbling. The more you kind of scribble, the more you get the idea of all those little bitty leaves and all that light that kind of filters through. You can use a textured brush if you feel like it. I mean, let me show you what that looks like. Kind of tap it in there, and you get like all those little bits here and there. Nothing real wrong with that. You just want to, ugh. I say that, and look at that. It's like, Christmas lights, Christmas lights. But like too much of the pattern, and once again, you start losing your hand. So start painterly and get more and more and more tight as you go. So once again, I generally tend to make my own brushes. So harder brush, because I want to have some nice little, happy little highlights. Happy little highlights. Ugh. Once again, I draw too fast and Photoshop's like, I'm just doing a straight line, lady. I don't even know what you want. Go. Just some little highlight right on the edge of that little tree. Just little happy trees. And then let's give them some little happy tree trunks. I'm going to grab some of that brown that's inside the castle there. And with tree trunks, you just want to be like, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. Fat on the bottom, skinny at the top. I don't care. I don't care. Wow, that's done with the tree. Let's fatten them up. Yeah. If your trees ever look stupid, it's probably because the branches are too thick and the trunk can't support the weight. So if you ever are like, I don't understand, try throwing a little more junk in that trunk. Just, I'm not even kidding. Try throwing a little more weight in that trunk. See how that makes you feel. A lot of times that's all you need to do. These little guys way out in the back, just something to kind of hint at a little stand of trees back there. Once again, now I'm going to grab a little bit of a nice little soft kind of pinkish highlight here, come back in. Now these guys are in shade, so just every now and then, I'm going to turn this bad boy on, yeah, every now and then, a little bit of light just kind of kisses the edge of some of these. Then, come back in, grab a nice darker shadow, roll back up in here, same thing, a little bit of shine, a little bit of shine, every now and then. Keep in mind, you guys, your audience isn't stupid. They know what they're looking at. You don't have to define everything. When you zoom out, it's like, oh, tree, right? So, we've covered a lot of information. We have 30 minutes left in this panel. So, at this point, I'm like, look, I could just keep filling this with more dumb stuff, but I'm sure you guys have questions. So that was a lot of information that you all just got. I'm sure you have questions. Let's open up the question and answers. What you got? What you got? Oh, I see a hand. What's up?
Do you ever color in grayscale and then add color on top of it?
That's a fantastic question. Do I ever color in grayscale and then add color on top of it? That multiply process? I have in the past, just to like play with it, just have some fun with it. It really, it really depends on what it is you're trying to do. So like if you're doing something like dark and gritty, like an orc or a dinosaur or a dragon or something like that's got a lot of that, you want that kind of smoky, ambient color to it, yeah, that'll work out really well. That really does. But the thing with working with multiply layers is that multiply, and this is something that was taught to me by martial colorists, multiply deadens color. It's a very subtle thing, and like most people can't tell with their eye. Those guys, they can't be like, you put multiply on that, didn't you? I'll be like, yeah. It deadens color, it kills color, it eats color in the same way that adding black to paint eats color, eats the saturation, it eats all the tone. So you want to avoid doing that unless that is what it is you're shooting for. So every time I've seen it executed well, it's been things like, you know, big, heavy, scary characters and chains and stuff, and dragons and smoke and but for things like delicate little like fairy girls or like, you know, Sailor Moons and stuff like that, it comes across as dead. It eats your color. So I always recommend working from a sketch and then working with color from there. Dang you guys. But yeah, multiply layers, you want to use them as little as possible. The trick I have with multiply that you can get away with, let me show you real quick. This is a multiply layer trick you can get away with. So let's say I wanted to add like some ambient shadow. Once again, randomness is awesome. Randomness helps to build the quality of your world. So let's throw a new layer on top here. Let's turn it into a multiply layer, right? And then let's turn that opacity down like 70%. And let's turn this into a really dark purple layer and just fill it. No gradient, let's just fill it. Boom. Now you see how that took everything down tonally, like that? Now what I can do is come in and turn that opacity down real low and it brings it back up to like normal. But the higher that opacity is, the more that darkness is in there. Now what you can do is turn it down real low, I like to put it somewhere in the 20s, and then come over here and grab your eraser tool, right? Use that eraser tool the same way you would a brush. Take that hardness way down, take that spacing way up. I'm going to take my flow down, my opacity down way low like that. And what I'm going to do is come in here and I'm going to start using the eraser to pull light back out from that layer. So I'm erasing that layer I just did. It's like maybe I want like a glow up here. I can use like real soft motions to kind of pull some of that light back out. So you see how I can like pull the glow out and that gives you like more depth and more layers. But once again, you want to use this as sparing as possible, because the more of that multiply you leave on the finished piece, the more it's deadening the color underneath. That's just part of what happens in print. So like down here on the field, if I come through with my eraser tool and I just start erasing that multiply layer that I have, I can start to get like this really soft glow coming through. I'm not using a glow tool, I'm not using a glow layer. I'm letting that multiply do that hard work for me. Yeah. So like with Link, what I can do, let's really turn up that eraser tool. Let's make it nice and hard here. What I can do is come in, and I can use this to kind of help like bring out some of his highlights on the edges, like that. Now let me show you what that looks like. Original, multiply. Original, multiply. Can you guys see that difference? Yeah? Okay, so once again, you want to use that as sparingly as possible, because I mean, look at this. Bright, color, bright. I can get in there with my colors in my brush right now and do the same thing I'm doing right now with this. This is kind of a time-saving tool, but also like, it's like, ooh, what a difference, but also look at the deadening. See how that deadens the color? So be very, very sparing with multiply, but this is a really good tool if like you're like, I'm on a time limit, I gotta get this out, I don't care if it's a little muddy, I need some glow effects. Boom! Eraser tool on top of a full layer of multiply. Boom! There you go. So does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yay, awesome. Next question. Yeah. Ooh, wait, I'm saying yeah. What you got?
So with the same with like multiplying layers, you can use that to highlight things as well, correct?
Yes, you can. Let me show you the things that drive colorists, like professional colorists, insane. Let me show you like the stuff you don't want to do. So you can use this to highlight, like up here on the clouds. Notice how like on this edge of the cloud here, when I erased, I get this like soft glow, like that's radiant light coming off the clouds, or like maybe some like radiant light coming up. So you can use this darker layer with your eraser tool the same you would as a highlight. Just be like highlights, just by erasing and bringing back your original layer underneath. But let me show you some stuff that just drives colorists insane, like overlay. You see a lot of overlay. You walk down the artist alley right now, it's overlay city, man. I'm like, more power to you, babies. Make that money. Mama's got to wet her beak. I get it. But overlay is, when professionals see it, there's like, and that's what that is. So we get a little judgy. Not gonna lie, we're a little bit judgy. But if I came here with overlay like this, and I'm like, and really punch up those colors, that's a little bit of a overstatement here. Let's bring some yellow in there. Take that opacity down, take that down. Hardness down, spacing up, that off. There we go. With overlay, you can come in and really do some like really dramatic highlights with overlay. And what that also does is it really bumps up the saturation of the color it's next to as well. So like if I come in here, let me take this down real low. Like you see how that's like really turning that pink a much brighter pink. So like, yeah, that's not coming from me. That's not a decision I'm making. This is the computer just all like, yes, let me eat everything you just did and turn everything around it pink. And while that's super neat and fun to look at, it's not coming from me. This is not a decision that I'm making as an artist. This is just like, look at the draw, which that's your first step, man. That's your planning phase. That shouldn't be the point of your piece. So a lot of people, like when they do like hair on their figures and such, they're all like, overlay! And I used to do it too. I used to be like, look at all the pretty different colors I didn't plan on, haha, what a happy accident! And my friends at Marvel were like, girl, you're better than that. And I'm like, am I though? So, but like, let me show you. I'm just going to do some overlay with a bright yellow in this cloud. So I'm using bright yellow in this cloud right now, but like, notice how it's just going, everything gets bumped up in saturation. You want some pink, and you want some pink, and you want some pink. Look under your chair. You get some pink, and you get some pink. So yeah, you don't want to go too. Let me just like really take this up. So you don't want to go too crazy with this, because man, it will just eat. It eats your hand, is what it does. And by that I mean it eats your hand as an artist. And with, like I said, with computers, the temptation is to go, yes, senpai, take me on this journey, and let me, do the full. but it should be you. It should be coming from you. That being said, what do I know, right? I'm not the boss of you. Have fun. Do the thing. Make the things. Do what makes you happy. Have a good time with it. If you're not playing, you're working too hard. So have fun with it, but at the same time, beware of these kind of traps, because like those are the fingerprints of I'm not really willing to learn about color scale and color theory, right? All right, good question, by the way. Good question. What you got?
Alright, so whenever I do digital, I am an absolute sucker for the blend tool.
Ah, yes.
Is there ever a situation where you can use the blend tool?
Oh, absolutely. Is there ever a situation where it's appropriate to use the blend tool? Yes, there absolutely is. I like to use the blend tool a lot when I'm doing like highly detailed clouds. I like to call them God lives there clouds. You know the ones I'm talking about, like in like big Texas skies. You're like, look at that, partially scattered God. You can get in there, like you can do exactly what I just did. And Corel Painter. I'm sorry, I meant to say Clip Studio Paint has an amazing blender tool. It's the equivalent of Corel Paint's Just Add Water, which used to be my baby. And what that is basically a finger, and you're just doing this, just doing this, just doing this. And that's how I paint in real life. So to me, it doesn't feel like a cheat because that's how I paint in real life. Like I'll be like, and my favorite finger, here we go. Yes, making clouds, making clouds, making clouds, and just pushing that color around. It's all just a tool. Everything I'm saying is just a suggestion. I'm telling you what we're judging about, but it's all just suggestions, and it's all just tools. So like over here, I don't have this one. At home, I've got my my smudge and my blur and like my special blending tool all set up the way I like it. But with these guys, like let me just show you what I'm talking about. Like at home, if I'm doing like God lives there clouds, I'll do a base like this, and then I'll get in there with that little smudgy tool. Let me take the hardness up on this a bit, scattering down, shape dynamics down, actually scattering on. Let's take a little scattering. Let's take that down a bit. Yeah, there we go. All right. And then I'll come in here, and what I'm doing is just making those same initial shapes that I did the first time to build the clouds, but I'm just like dragging color around, dragging it up. And it's just, it takes forever because this little computer is not very powerful. But what I can do is just like use that blend tool to like really get all those crevices and hundreds of little peaks and valleys and move it around and then go back in with more paint, add more highlights, bring out a new friend, make layers within layers within layers of the cloud. Oh, here it comes. See, it's taking its sweet time. It's taking its sweet time. It takes forever because this is a very old laptop, yeah. But like all these little smudges are starting to build extra valleys, extra curves, extra. So yeah, I say don't use the pre-made tools, but at the same time, if you know what you're doing, go for it. And even if you don't know what you're doing, have fun. It's just a tool. I say it's a tool. It's a toy, you guys. It's just a toy. That's what it is. Think of it like a GameCube. It's just a toy. Have fun with it. Your programs are your games. Make them do what you want them to do. Let's see, we got about 15 minutes left. I'm just gonna, but like, see how like I was able to like pull out just a few like extra like deeper little weird like hard edges. I like to make edges on edges on edges on edges, and I do that with my finger in real life. Why not do it with the finger tool within the computer? So once again, it's all just a tool. It's all just a toy. And there are absolutely times when it's appropriate to use that smudge tool. You just don't want to rely on that smudge tool. When everything is the same process, look around you. Like the world is full of so many different textures. Like this table is smooth, and this is all fluffy, and my hair is all scraggly, and my shirt has like got a tooth to it, and the walls are textured, but windows are shiny. You know, so not everything needs the same tool. So it's okay to use it in one spot and then not use it in a completely other spot. That way you're moving textures around your world. It just helps to really build that world out. Does that answer your question at all? Yes. I feel like I'm rambling. I cannot recommend it highly enough. Clip Studio Paint, which used to be Manga Studio. All right, I did 3 graphic novels in Manga Studio, and then they renamed it to Clip Studio Paint because it's such a powerful program that real, like, honest to God, illustrators and graphic artists and such are like, yeah, this is cheaper than Photoshop, and I need it. I need it in my life. I'm like, yeah, you do. It basically simulates Photoshop and my last favorite version of Corel Paint, which was a $600 program, and it's only like $80. and it's not a subscription service, and it comes with a cloud, and it's amazing, and it's got 3D modeling, and it's got color, and it's got comic making, and it's got animation, and it's amazing. You're gonna blow $80 just on food this weekend, you guys. Go get this program, I'm serious. So, sorry, what?
What was the name of it again?
Clip Studio Paint. Clip Studio Paint. It is so good and so powerful, and there's a blending tool within there that is just amazing. I think it's just called blending tool, and it is basically Corel Painter's Just Add Water tool, which was God's blending tool, let me tell you. So I highly recommend that if you're looking for a simple drawing program that does everything. Great question, by the way. Yeah, what you got?
Don't forget that it's also on sale a lot.
That's actually a very good point. That particular program, Clip Studio Paint, goes on sale all the time. Like Black Friday, I got it for like $40. The professional version for like $40. So yeah, seriously, it's worth every penny no matter what you pay for. It's such a good program. Like I said, animation, painting, comic making, it's ridiculous. Very powerful. So yeah, we got about 15 minutes left. Who has, bless you. Yeah, you're welcome. What you got?
Besides, obviously, computer and Photoshop or any other program, what other tools do you use to like work with your stuff on like whatever?
You mean digitally or?
Yes, like digitally. Like besides the computer and the programs, like do you ever like use other things with it?
Other tools besides?
Because like I mean, you were saying like this, you use a scanner earlier.
Oh, okay, things like that. Yeah, peripherals. Okay, that's what it. Well, actually, that's a very good point. I should have mentioned this earlier. Let's talk about the basic tool set. So first and foremost, if you're going to do digital, computer. Yay! So you just want to make sure you've got a video card that can handle whatever it is, that can handle it enough like RAM and like memory. Here's the deal though. I don't have one with me right now, but at home, I've got multiple hard drives, like external hard drives, and I dump. I am just constantly, bless you, just dumping and dumping and dumping and dumping. Everything I make, I dump onto that external hard drive because trust me, I've been doing this since like 1999. I have lost a lot of stuff because hard drives have just crashed on me. Dump, just constantly be dumping. Also, whenever you can take a big file off the computer, it helps it to continue to be a basic computer. Hooray! So that's always fun. But in terms of like actual things that you use to make this, Wacom tablet first and foremost. So I've got my tablet right here. A lot of people are all like, oh, you have to have a Cintiq. You can't be a digital artist if you don't have a Cintiq. What? No, it's just a tool. That's not all, it's just a tool. I mean, I walk around now and I'm like seeing kids drawing on their iPads. Oh, by the way, Clip Studio Paint works on iPad. You're welcome, yeah. And I'm like, dude, I wish I could afford a refurb iPad. Once again, I'm a poor artist, that's just how it works. But this is a $350 tablet. I just got it about 3 years ago, and the only reason I had to replace my first Intuos Wacom 1 was because they stopped making nibs for the stylus, and I was buying them via the black market out of Romania. And that got awkward real quick. So, I mean, these things are tanks. Wacom is the like industry standard. These are like the tanks. If you got the money to blow, this is the way to go. But you don't need a Cintiq. This is just a tablet. A lot of people have a disconnect because I've got my stylus here and I'm like looking here, but my hand's doing this. And a lot of people find that there's a disconnect between the eye doing this and the hand doing this. But quite frankly, if you just spent a week, like, you know, take your mouse away, put your mouse somewhere where you can't find it, this is your mouse now. You spend a week doing this, like checking your email, doing like this, you know, I guarantee you, after a while, you won't even notice. Trust me on that. The first week, you know, almost 2 decades ago, it was really awkward. But after that, I don't even notice. I don't even notice anymore that I'm not looking at my hands. So the eye and the hand want to work in tandem, so it doesn't take long for them to figure out, oh, it's still working, it's fine. I'm just looking here, the hand's doing this, you're fine. Now, this is the professional version. This is the medium. Wait, is it the medium? No, this is the small. This is the small, you guys. This is the small. My original tablet was about half this size. Now, a lot of people think, oh, bigger is better, bigger is better. To me, no. A, I can travel with this. It can fit in my luggage, but also, the less I have to move my wrist, the better, all right? When you're a digital artist, carpal tunnel is something you need to worry about, right? Like the repetitious motion of your hand. So, like, the less you have to move your wrist, the better. I had a friend who got a secondhand Cintiq, and he was so proud of himself, and it was this big. It was huge. I think he got it from like the Austin School of Film or something. It was ridiculous, and he paid nothing for it. He's like, why would anybody sell this? And a week later, he's like, I hate it. Thanks, I hate it. Because it was like, he was like, here, try it. You try to make this thing work. You show me if you can do this. I was like, okay. Open Photoshop. About 20 minutes later, I'm like, God, man and cheese. It was like doing aerobics. Like just open, close, thing. So bigger is not, more is not always better, you guys. Sometimes more is just more, you know? Now, in terms of like what you need out of a tablet, out of your actual tool, the only thing you really need to be super worried about is pressure sensitivity, right? The more levels of pressure sensitivity you have, the more like the computer can register how hard you're pressing on your stylus and tilt and wheel and how you're moving the pin around on the surface, and that gives you a lot more like detail and flow within your image. There is a student quality version of this called the Bamboo, the Wacom Bamboo. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing, especially if you just want to make comics. You're not looking to do like big paintings. You just want to do like black and white comics with like, you know, screen tone backgrounds. That's perfectly fine. That'll do exactly what you need it to do. So if you're looking to like not drop a ton of cash, but you would like to get used to working on a tablet, Bamboo works just fine. I can't say enough. Really good stuff. Plus, using Wacom as opposed to one of like the off-brand models, the Wacom customer service, I cannot say enough good things. They're just genuinely good people, and they'll hang on the phone with you, or they'll sit on chat with you as long as you need to get that problem fixed until they figure out you're just drawing too fast. So, but yeah, I can't say enough. As a company, it's just a really good company to have to deal with. Hey, good question. What you got?
It's not really a question. It's just more like I kind of like I do have a Cintiq, and I actually have problems with Clip Studio actually working with my Cintiq.
Is it by any chance you put your pin down with the marks over here?
It just doesn't do anything.
Ah,
like
you should get on.
I could click everything on there. It just won't make any lines.
Really? Okay, yeah. So with that, I would actually call Smith Macro, the Clip Studio people. Get on the phone with them. They sat on the phone with me for like 2 days of like, hey, I'm back. You know, and we finally figured out what it was just this one button you have to push. Try removing your user preferences on the tablet. That's the one thing I had to push to make all my problems go away. And they were like, what? And I was like, what? And they're like, what? And I was like, what? And now I'm like telling everyone, click remove user preferences. All your problems are done. So those poor guys are learning just along with us. They're just customer service reps, but they'll go out of their way to try to help you. But that sounds more like a program problem than maybe the hardware problem. So yeah, what you got?
Do you use wet edges and try to go for a watercolor look very often? Have you found that good in Photoshop? What are your thoughts?
You know, honest to goodness, when I want a watercolor effect, I just do a watercolor and then I scan it in. You know, and I'll use that as a background. So, I mean, technically I'm a multimedia artist in that I work in all the media and combine them. So, there's nothing wrong with using normal media and photographing it or scanning it or whatever. But wet edges they're fun, but I find that by the time it's done rendering, I'm like, oh, I don't actually want that. So I don't waste my time with it anymore, kind of thing. But one more thing, you guys, on the subject of equipment. You'll notice I've got this itty bitty teeny tiny little keyboard right here. It's not a big fancy one. It's like small enough to fit into a purse. This thing is maybe the best piece of equipment I've ever bought in terms of like digital media stuff. This is for all my hotkeys, my shortcuts. Even when I'm working at home with my big like tower CPU, this is still my baby because this can be angled and moved and put anywhere I need it to, as opposed to like a full-size keyboard with the number pad, which you don't need. So like this is small enough that you can move it and be ergonomic in your environment, because the number one thing you want to be aware of within your actual working setup is your comfort level, because let me tell you, stress on your shoulders, your neck, your back, your trapezius, your collarbone, your wrists, your hands, your elbows is a real thing. So you want to make sure that you can actually move your environment to the point where you are happy and healthy, and get up and take a break every now and then. It drives my husband insane because I'll sit there for hours. He'll come in my workroom, pop an old Mystery Science Theater tape into my VCR. Yeah, I still got one of those. And he's like, when that's done, you eat. I'm like, okay. So like an hour and a half goes by, I'm like, oh, time for a break. So Mystery Science is how I know it's time to take a break. So Yeah, make sure that you're using, this is not fancy. This is like maybe 18 bucks at Fry's, it was nothing. It was not, and it's maybe my favorite piece of equipment. So make sure that, you're comfortable within your environment. All right, we got like 5 minutes left. You guys, time for one more question? That was a really great question, by the way. Thank you so much. I completely forgot to mention hardware at the beginning. Oh, what you got?
So I saw you have an Intuos. I never really knew what the difference is between the tips.
Ah, the tips. Okay. Now, I didn't bring my tip pack because why would I risk losing that? With Intuos, when you get Intuos, you get a little standee that you like go boop, and now it lives there kind of thing. Mine goes wherever because I'm an idiot. But you really should be putting it in its little stand. And the stand itself opens up, and within it is a ring filled with all these different little nibs on the tip. Now, you'll find a nib that you like, that's your baby, that you just love to death, but each one has a different thing it does. Now, I prefer the nib that's just a hard plastic, and I grind them down to an angle. It, like, for real, I'm looking at my nib right now, and it starts out like a rounded ballpoint pin tip, and I work so much that I've ground it down to like a chiseled angle, and that's just how I work. So, like, that little chisel's just moving around doing what I need to do, and that's just what I do with, I don't mean to do it, it just do. But inside the little ring that comes with it, there's all these different little nibs. Now, some are softer, some are made of felt, some have a rubberized tip on them, some even have this little spring halfway through. And each of those do something different. So the hard one is very slick on this hard, slick surface. So I can like just really drag and go fast and get really expressive lines. And I'm all about working quickly, so I'm always like move, move, move. Whereas the felt tip, the felt is softer, so it doesn't read as much back on the pressure system, and you get much like denser, more chunky, but really fun, soft lines. So if you're looking to make like a single sort of flowing line that doesn't taper or do anything really dynamic, the felt's a really great way to go. The rubberized one has more grab on the surface of the tablet, so you can add a bit more pressure. So if you feel like, man, it just doesn't feel like working on paper, I recommend either the felt or the rubberized tip because it's grabbing the surface of the tablet a little harder, the same way your pencil kind of grabs the tooth of the paper. Now, here's a tip for people who maybe have a hard time transitioning between this and actual paper. The hard nib, your favorite piece of sketch paper taped to the top of your tablet, draw right onto the paper. That way it's actually on a paper surface and something in your brain goes, oh, that feels good, like that. Now, the downside of that is the paper does have a certain grittiness, a certain tooth, and it does grind down your tip way faster. But if you're just like, I need something to grab this tip, man, it's too slick. Tape a little piece of paper down, draw right on top of that paper, and oh, yes, sweet, sweet sketchbook. Oh, feels good, man, feels good. The one with the spring inside is meant for like if you want to replicate like a brush pen. So you get like real dramatic, like thick to thin lines, like itty bitty, real thick, itty bitty again. That springs are like, yes, in the middle. I know that sounds weird, but that's the best way I can describe this. Yes! So yeah, each one does something different. Here's something I saw online. Do not do this. I will mock you, okay? Even after I'm dead, I will haunt you and mock you from the grave. Do not put biscotti in your tip, okay? I saw a lot of people like, you just take some spaghetti and you put it on the tip and now you got a new nib. Do not put food in your, this is your tool. There's a song, no, it's on like, I don't know, the internet. It's like, Amelie, have you seen this really cool tip? I'm like, don't do that. I will mock you. So don't put spaghetti in your thing, man. I mean, I know it's just a little piece of plastic, but it's expensive for a reason. Like, just if you're gonna do it, man. Just do it. So great question, by the way. So yeah, you guys, we're at the end of the panel. Let me give you a little information before we go. First things first, hi, I've been Amelie Belcher. Second, if you guys want to follow me online, I'm on Instagram, Amelie Belcher, and I paint parks, where I just paint theme parks. Yay! If you guys like podcasts, my husband and I do a podcast, Laser Disco Tech, where we watch defunct movies on Laserdisc and make fun of them like Mystery Science, so if you guys want to listen to us there. We're also going to be starting a Gargoyles podcast soon, and a Disney Plus podcast if you guys want to listen to us complain about what is and is not on Disney Plus. Let's see what else. I've got webcomics. All my information's in the guest section on your app, and your guest information, everything. But yeah, thanks so much for coming, you guys. I've got a table in the Artist Alley. I'm going to be doing live painting for the art show in just a few minutes. So come check out the art show and see me make a mess on a big old canvas in just a little while. while. So thanks for coming, everybody. Yay! Yes, 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 yes.